Good morning and welcome to today's Subnet session coming to you live from our studios here in South Australia. My name is Ben and I'm really pleased to be bringing you this webinar today focusing on mandatory sustainability reporting for IT teams and really shifting the focus now to the new deadline for mandatory reporting that is going to come into effect in 2027 next year. And to help me unpack this a little bit further, I'm really pleased to be welcoming back to the stage Beau Alderson from APC by Schneider Electric. Beau, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thanks, Ben. Really happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back again. And I know we were saying earlier that this session today is really a continuation on that earlier presentation you made last year on mandatory sustainability reporting. But obviously, with the new looming deadline next year, but also in a world that's changed quite dramatically in the last 12 months, to say the very least.
Yeah, certainly it's been an interesting 12 months. It's been a long 12 months, I think, for all of us. And not to not to ruin the surprise, but everything that we're seeing in the world at the moment is essentially, I suppose, it's evolving our views of sustainability, and as IT leaders, it's evolving our view of how we implement and maintain equipment into the future.
Absolutely. Well, I think that really does set the tone and context for what we're about to discuss right now, which is great. Look, what I'll do, Bo, is I'll just bring your presentation up onto the stage there. And
Sure.
for those who are joining us right now, again, please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A panel. I've just received a notification here. We may have some audio issues here as well. We'll just look into that and just double check, make sure that the microphone's coming on. I mean, Bo, I assume you can hear me okay. I can hear you all right. So,
Yep. All
um,
good, then.
all right, fantastic. Just the person who's watching right now, if you're able to just check your audio issues on your end as well, please let us know if you still have any troubles, but we'll try to rectify that as we go along as well. Anyone else who's having some trouble, please just notify us in the chat window. And yep, so all good. We've just got confirmation from that participant that the audio is working now. So on that note, Bo, I think we'll kick off. And as I was about to say as well, any questions, please just submit them in the right-hand Q&A panel as well. We look forward to your participation in this webinar. Over to you, Bo.
Thanks, Ben, and I'm very glad everyone can hear me, because it would be a pretty boring half hour watching the slides go backwards and forwards on the screen. So to everyone watching, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. As mentioned, my name's Beau Alderson from Schneider Electric. I am an account executive here, based in Western Australia, and obviously I look after South Australia and the great team at Subnet, one of my key clients. I've been helping customers across the Pacific region design, deploy, support, and modernize their data center infrastructure over the past 20 years, 25 years almost now for me, but 20 years with Schneider Electric, formerly APC. And it's been a very evolving space over that time, and particularly over the past 5 years, as we've dug into sustainability as not just as a high level topic, but as something that is an area we can contribute to directly as IT professionals. It's very, very exciting. So this presentation is designed as both a introductory piece around sustainability reporting. For those that weren't at our webinar last year that Ben and the Subnet team and I did, I'd encourage you to go back and have a look at that, and I'm sure Ben can make that available to you. I'm going to reference it quite a bit. For those that were in that session last year, some of this may be a little bit of a double up for you. However, we're going to really shake it up towards the end with some new things that you can do in light of the current situation to help with your sustainability goals and sustainability reporting. So let's kick into that. So who is Schneider Electric? We are your energy technology partner. So what does that mean? We specialize in helping customers, big, small, commercial, government, residential, and anyone in between, to electrify, automate, and digitize their business. As we know, with the impact of technology across all facets of our life, electrification is no different. So the ability to use technology to use electricity and power more efficiently is key And we are doing that to drive efficiency and sustainability for everyone around the world. We do that by focusing on 5 distinct segments. Buildings, like the one you're luckily in today, homes like you have at home, data centers, my favorite topic, industry and manufacturing, as well as infrastructure, so power grid, and everything in between. We aim to electrify, we aim to automate, and we aim to use digital technologies, including AI, in every aspect of what we do. And again, we're about making the world a more sustainable, resilient place for everyone. So that's the high level on Schneider Electric. But to get really to the topic of today, we are at an inflection point. And this is actually some slides that were in our presentation last year for anyone that remembers it. But we have a short-term energy crisis, and we have a long-term climate crisis. So the inflection point. And Ben and I were discussing this a little earlier on today, but you wouldn't believe that this slide was put together over 2 years ago. And I'm not going to claim that we can see the future, but certainly we did call out the fact that we are expecting the geopolitical situation and just our normal situation to create shortages of fuel, to increase pricing of fuels, both petrol and diesel. That's very topical at the moment, but also gas and other forms of commodities. We are seeing growing fuel poverty, people that can't afford access to fuel for their businesses, homes, or vehicles. Rising inflation is a topic very close to all of our hearts. And we are also seeing slowing of some economies as a result of the fact that they can't get access to energy. And Schneider's view is that really that's not acceptable. It's something that we need to address, and we need to help customers on their journey. On the other side, we've got this climate crisis. So we have, global warming, we have extreme weather events, we have social unrest as a result. Even as we record this today, we're looking at Cyclone Narelle that's going to hit for the first time 3 Australian states, Queensland, Northern Territory, and it's going to swing back and hit me here in Perth by the weekend. Something to look forward to. But, this is, look, these things happened in the past before we knew that global warming was a thing. 100% understand that. However, you cannot tell me that, or you cannot say that the warming of our oceans has not caused these things to be more frequent than they were maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago and beyond. And we're certainly seeing that with Narelle, where the water temperatures are causing that particular weather system to increase speed and hit us more than once, and to actually swing back around and hit Perth metro area on the weekend, potentially, is an interesting case on that point. So this climate crisis isn't going away. And Australia moved quite early on this in terms of our CRFDS or CRFD, the Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. This is moving your sustainability objectives and goals and performance from a voluntary landscape, so from something that you would do to appease investors and to talk about how good you are as an organization or as an entity. It's moving that to a mandatory requirement, and it's happening across all of the country, and it's impacting at the moment a large portion of large organizations and enterprise. And as you can see on this slide here, we're going to be seeing that move and impact a lot more people in July 2027, which is only now 12 months away. So 3 to 4 years ago, when we started educating customers on this topic, 2027 seemed like a long way away. Now we are 12 months away from actually having that hit. And if you're an entity that has over $50 million in revenue, over $25 million in gross assets, or have over 100 employees, you are going to be subject to this. And you need a combination of any two of those criteria. However, you could argue that not many companies that have one of those wouldn't have at least one of the other elements there. So in 2026 or 2027, depending on the size of your organization, you will be preparing a financial report and a director's statement, and you will be having those submitted to auditors. And you will now need to have a sustainability report prepared based on your Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions, as well as your goals, plans, and strategies around reducing your carbon impact. I'd just like to pause there and state very, very clearly that I am not a compliance expert. I'm an IT person, like a lot of you on the call. This is not meant to be legal or compliance advice, and I would urge you to seek professional advice on any of these matters before taking actions. In the same way that you wouldn't listen to a podcaster and take financial advice, you shouldn't listen to me and take advice on this necessarily. This is educational, and I'd like you to obviously take your own, make your own judgments and seek professional advice. So the Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions are essentially, we're rolling out over a 4-year period the application of these compliance statements. So the important part of this slide is that in the first year, Scope 3 emissions are exempt. Okay, so as you proceed in Scope 3, or Scope 1, 2, or 3 emissions, Scope 3 emissions are exempt for the first year. You get a soft landing, essentially, on Scope 3 emissions. And we'll explain why that is in the next slide. The really key part here is that from year 4 onwards, when you are reporting as an organization on your Scope 1, 2, or 3 emissions and on your sustainability performance, this is not just a document that you can put in the back of a folder and submit and say this is fine. These are going to be audited documents in the same way that your financial documents are audited today. So this is not a matter of putting in some guesswork. This is not a matter of just having a page in the back of your annual report that says we believe we are efficient and we believe we are acting in a sustainable manner. These are actually documents that must be audited and verified and peer reviewed, or reviewed rather. So make sure you understand that and make sure you are aware of the implications of that. For the business owners out there and for senior leadership, that can mean legal penalties if you falsify these records. So it's really, really important that we, as IT professionals, help our businesses to collate data and to use that data to prepare accurate records on our Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. I've mentioned it quite a few times during the presentation so far, so let's explain Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. Scope 1 are emissions essentially that you burn, okay, for lack of a better way of putting it. So this is fuel for your company cars and your power equipment. This is energy or oil and gas fuel that you would use in a manufacturing facility to generate revenue directly for your company. That's Scope 1. They are actually relatively easy for you to determine because you're buying in that fuel and therefore you can track what you use. Scope 2 are the indirect emissions. These are things that you purchase, but we're talking things like electricity, natural gas, heating, and cooling. So you don't actually generate the emissions of the electricity that you buy. You have emissions, however, that I actually can't remember the SA Power Networks as an example in Adelaide. They would be generating the emissions for providing you that electricity. So that still needs to be catered for. So buying something does not mean that you are immune from how that energy or how that energy is created. Scope 3 is the tricky one. Scope 3 caters for 15 categories of upstream and downstream activities and are typically about 90% of an organization's emissions footprint. So your CO2e or your carbon equivalency. So this is things like transportation and distribution of the goods and services that you buy. This can be business travel. This can include employees commuting to work and how they do that. It can also be things like, what happens at end of life for products and how we remove that carbon or that COTE from your balance sheet, as well as transportation and distribution of the goods that you manufacture and make and sell. Now, there has been one key change to this over the past 12 months, and I want to just highlight it because it does let us know that this is going to be a flexible approach. Whilst it is regimented and legislated, there is flexibility here to amend this over time. Now, I'm not saying there will be further amendments. However, from an investment perspective, last year, when this was introduced, if you were an investment company or an LIC, you would actually have to, your scope 3 emissions would be the organizations that you invested in, which pose some challenges. So that has been drawn back. If you are an investment firm, please seek some further advice on that. However, you no longer need to count your investments as your scope 3 emissions. And I hope that makes sense to everyone on the call. So this will evolve. However, I wouldn't expect it to necessarily get easier for your compliance. I would expect it to actually get more complex as time goes by and as data sources become more frequently available on all of these areas. So what else has changed in the past 12 months? Well, in particular, there's been a lot of global trends that are impacting all of us. We are seeing more rockets fired between countries and more civil and military distress than we ever have before, or in my lifetime anyway, in my last 25 years of working, and certainly hoping that all that comes to an end very, very quickly. But we are in a different world than we were 10, 15 years ago. We're seeing a lot more clarity now around what the future looks like in terms of robotics. So, very recently, you can now buy a car in the US that has no steering wheel and no pedals. It is literally just a robotic vehicle for driving goods, services, and people from place to place. So this is all becoming a lot clearer to us. In terms of AI itself, and obviously, the robotics are powered by AI, but in terms of AI itself, we are aware of the constraints on GPUs and chipsets. In 2026, that's hitting us in a big way due to memory. So, the impact of the lack of NAND chips available, because all of that production capacity is going into servicing this new AI factory boom, worth about $1 trillion of infrastructure spend. That's impacting us. Electrification, and for those that have gone out and brought EVs, over the past 12 months, we've seen a little bit of a decline in the forecast of electrification of vehicles and other infrastructure. Ironically, if we look at what's happened over the past 3 or 4 weeks, we're now seeing that reverse. So we expect this to ebb and flow over the next couple of years. However, there is the path is set. Electrification is the future for automobiles, and particularly in your homes and your businesses. So electrifying and also then making the most of that energy and electrification is key. And of course, we're seeing the impact of inflation and inflationary pressures on our personal budgets as well as our corporate budgets. And I can tell you right now, I don't think many of us are in a situation where we're going to have to pay double for our IT equipment this year due to the chipset shortages. Yet, we're not going to have to make some sacrifice somewhere else. Money does not grow on trees, as my father used to say. And the reality is we've got a budget and we're going to have to make use of that. So with all these things happening around us, we need to make sure that we are in a position where we're not just keeping on spending, right? And IT is key to a lot of that. We know that IT is shouldering the burden of data center sustainability. And when I say data center, I'm not just talking about, a 50 rack data center, 100 racks, 200 racks. A lot of us aren't going to have that kind of infrastructure or facility in our basement. A data center, where we talk about a data center, is essentially any physical infrastructure. It's one rack and beyond, okay? It has a UPS, it needs cooling, it has infrastructure, it needs your support, and it needs physical and cyber security. That's what I call a data center. Further to that, AI and being sustainable by design is the key to a greener future. And you can see that from the World Economic Forum there. That's not just an IT statement. we are recognizing now that we need, with the amount of power available, we need to make changes in order to sustain what we're building from an AI perspective. And AI and IT are now synonymous. I think you'd agree. There is no IT without AI at the moment for a lot of organizations, and it is key to strategy moving forward. And you know that we are also still seeing that growth of cloud and hyperscale adoption. So you know that 3x multiplier there from IDC down the bottom is also a key thing here. We are not expecting anything to change in terms of the trajectory of how organizations consume, how organizations deliver services to their internal customers and external customers. So last year, we spoke about using software to baseline your current operations to give you somewhere to start from on your sustainability journey. We spoke about energy efficient infrastructure to provide some quick wins, because as soon as you measure something, you're going to get a call to do it better. Okay. And again, you know, like a few of you, I'm looking at my fuel gauge in the car lately and going, how can I drive more efficiently? It's the same thing with IT. If we can measure it, we will try to do it better. And last year, we spoke about using data to make your reporting process easier and what that looked like. So if any of that appeals to you, please do go back and look at the last webinar that we did last year, and you can have a look through that. This year, given the rising costs pressures, given the inflationary pressures, we're going to talk about how to get more life out of your existing infrastructure assets. We're going to talk about the value of managed power services, and organizations like Subnet are able to deliver this for you to help give you a second set of eyes on some of that infrastructure. And we're going to talk about the value of developing a digital twin, an IT digital twin, and what that looks like for your organization and why that will help with your sustainability goals. So, step one, how do we help you get more out of your existing infrastructure? If we look at all those global issues, we'll call them, that are happening to us, and the fact that things are going up in price, the fact that things are more uncertain than ever before, you are going to need to sweat your assets a little bit more than you perhaps expected. Now, the way to do that is with data and information. And I'd like to introduce you to a piece of software that we have called EcoStruxure IT. What EcoStruxure IT does is, well, if you look on the left-hand side of this slide, you've got infrastructure devices that are required to build a data center. UPSs, power distribution units, environmental monitors, cooling systems. You as the IT manager or data center manager had to invest your time and resources to get the ones and zeros off all of those pieces of infrastructure and turn that into something that you can use. How do I know that my UPS is performing well? I spend time, I dig into it, and I look at how it's performing, what the trends are, what's been happening. I don't know about any of you on the call. However, I'm more time poor today than I ever have been before. I don't have time to do that. So what EcoStruxure IT does is it gives you a portal, rather. It gives you a way to view all that data in a meaningful way. It takes all of the log files and the ones and zeros of all of those devices. It presents them all back to you via either an iOS or Android app or a simple web interface that you can view from anywhere. And it presents it back to you in a way that you can actually use information to make better decisions. I hate the term data-driven decisions because data isn't very useful. Information-driven decisions are what matters, in my personal opinion. And that's what EcoStruxure IT does. And here's a little bit of a view of what that looks like. It gives you that centralized view of all of your assets and equipment. It gives you the ability to look and manage the asset lifecycle, including support contracts, whether firmware is up to date and cyber secure, whether configurations are inconsistent and causing inefficiencies. It gives you the ability to model your rooms and racks to simulate your efficiency or your PUE, your power usage effectiveness of your sites. So for every kilowatt of power that I'm paying from SA Power Networks or my local provider, how much of it am I actually using to put power into the input of my servers, my storage, and my network devices, and how much is going to waste as overhead. That's what PUE means. That's what efficiency means. And using this data, we can actually give you data-driven insights or information-driven insights to help you with your decision making and identify areas of focus. So I'd like to give you an analogy. Excuse me. And I call it the fridge analogy. We've all got a fridge at home. Guarantee you've got a fridge at home. Please let me know in the chat if you don't have a fridge at home. We can help. But I pose the question to you: how often do you replace your fridge? When do you replace your refrigerator at home? I can tell you right now that 99% of you are going to come back and tell me that you will replace your fridge at home when it fails. When you open the door that one day, the light doesn't come on and you notice everything's hot. That's normally when we replace our fridge. The other 1% will say, I replace it whenever I move house. And that's okay. I get that point of view as well. It's not a sexy device. Okay. Yes, there are companies trying to put screens in it and put AI into it, and they're connecting it to your Wi-Fi networks and everything else. However, if I gave you $10,000 today, if I gave Ben $10,000 from Subnet, he's unlikely to go, I'm going to buy a fridge. He's likely to go, I'm going to buy a bigger TV, a fancy new car, whatever the case may be. The UPS is very much like that, or the data center is very much like that in our IT environment. If the green light is on, we think it's okay, and we assume it's going to keep on going. But just like our fridge, where when it fails, we have this horrible incident where we spoil $1,000 worth of food, maybe $2,000 worth of food as it is today. And we end up with a situation where we've got water all over the floor and it's a big impact. So think about your UPS and think about what you would need in order to actually drive decisions around your UPS. So here's an example from our EcoStruxure IT software where we have a 10-year-old UPS with a 10-month-old battery, and we can use the data on that device to generate a battery replacement window based on data. So you can see that where we are in early 2026, I can plan for that outage in 2028 to 2029 using data. Now imagine if you could see that on your fridge at home. Now, I'm not trying to sell you refrigerators, obviously, but from a UPS point of view, imagine the certainty you have in terms of planning, in terms of remediation, in terms of avoiding outage, if you have this level of data on all of your systems. And this is what EcoStruxure IT provides. From that, we can also do things around sustainability assessments across your sites to ensure that you have a point-in-time reference of what your efficiency looks like from room to rack. So again, we're taking data that's already available in your environment, but presenting it back in a way that actually makes sense. It actually gives you an ability to make decisions. So that's wonderful if you've got the time to actually do that. But I'd like to introduce the concept here of managed power services. As opposed to just having secure power, as we call it, which is infrastructure. Imagine a world where you have someone actively viewing your power assets and distribution architectures proactively to maximize the reliability and extend the life cycle of your assets. And we call this managed power services. And to go back to what I just spoke about, if we look at this in a service level approach, Subnet may engage with you in 2026 as an initial engagement to look at what your fleet looks like and what your infrastructure looks like. We identify that it's going to last for a couple more years. As it gets closer to that time, we engage and we make sure that our model here is, not changing up or down. And then when the time comes, we do a proactive replacement to ensure that you have no downtime, to ensure that your fridge keeps on running without any of that impact of water going everywhere, or in a data center environment, rather, it's unplanned downtime, which is what we're all trying to avoid. This is a missing puzzle for a lot of customers in that it's great to have the tools, but having an organization work with you on using that tool is the missing piece. Excuse me again. The last piece of this is developing your IT digital twin. Now, if you're not familiar with a digital twin, it's designed to be a digital representation of your physical infrastructure. And some customers come to me and say, look, I've only got a couple of racks. I don't need to do this kind of thing. I understand. And we have different solutions to help you in that environment. But regardless of whether you've got on-premise equipment or co-located equipment, I will still advocate that you should have a digital model of your environment so that you can see and you can simulate changes and that you can actively review data on a real-time basis. And to do that, we have what we call EcoStruxure IT Advisor, which allows you to build in software your rack environment, whether it be one rack or a million racks, it doesn't really matter, to do your floor layouts. And you can do things like change management, capacity management, but more so from a sustainability perspective, you can simulate changes in this environment before you make them. So for example, I'm going to change from brand X server to brand Y servers. Fantastic. What impact is that going to have on my sustainability goals? And should I take that into account when I'm looking at procurement of these devices? If I'm going to save $1 million on hardware, but I'm going to incur $1 million in power cost, is that actually a good outcome? Now, we have tools like this available, and this will be in the presentation, and Ben can provide you the link, which give you a point-in-time reference. But just to give you an example of the sort of scope of changes that we're talking about here, or scope of impact, if we look at a small 10 kilowatt data center environment with a 25 kilowatt UPS and a 25 kilowatt cooling system versus that same environment with a 15 kilowatt UPS and a 15 kilowatt cooling system, we're talking about energy savings of about $30,000 per year. Okay? On top of the fact of we're reducing CO2e emissions by about 96 tons. Okay, it's a very, very big impact for what might seem to you like a very, very small change. And again, if we can manage this, we can improve it. But this is a point in time where the digital twin gives you the ability to have this kind of data and information on a consistent basis. And I would advocate all of you to look at that in some way, shape, or form in your environments. So I think I'm bang on time. The key takeaways I wanted to leave you with today. When will your organization need to commence reporting, or have you already commenced, and are you prepared? If you're an IT professional, IT leader in your business, you should be involved in that reporting process already. If you're not, you can expect to get tapped on the shoulder at some point in the very near future. In these uncertain times, you can use data to make informed decisions. You can use those, you can make decisions on existing assets, and you can balance your risk, performance, and sustainability outcomes. Time is money. We all know that. Again, it's another thing my father used to tell me, time is money. Consider incorporating managed power services into your existing MSP arrangements. Okay, speak to the team at Subnet about that. A second set of eyes to give you active information and insights that you can use is really, really valuable, and it probably costs less than you think for those that are already in existing service arrangements. This just goes beyond on-off monitoring to giving you insights that you can use as a value add. Schneider and Subnet, we can provide significant value to you around the reporting and improvement process. Again, I'm not a compliance specialist. However, we can help you through your IT environment and infrastructure to help you streamline that, to help you report on that, to help you monitor that, improve uptime, improve resiliency, and have a sustainability impact. And that's really the win-win. So on that, I'll hand back to you, Ben. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Beau. Really good, I think, continuation really of the conversation we had last year, especially in terms of the new solutions from APC and Schneider Electric to actually help organisations adapt and also prepare for the mandatory reporting due next year. I'm just having a quick look. We haven't received any questions via the Q&A panel yet, but please, if you're watching, I'm more than happy to take those questions now while we still have a little bit of time left as well. Just one thing I thought about touch on there, Beau, which I think you touched on in your previous presentation about the thresholds for reporting going into 2027. Especially look at the combined revenue, employee headcount as well. I think we made that point earlier that there's going to be a lot of those medium to large size enterprises, especially here in the South Australian market, that are really going to now come under that banner of mandatory reporting going into 2027.
Yeah, it's going that third wave is going to be a real catch-all, and that's why we are talking about 2020 to 2027 so actively. In that, a lot of organisations, again, it seemed like a long time away. Now it's getting closer. So if your organisation is in that category that's going to have to start reporting next year, now is the time to start looking at what data sources you have available, what sort of reporting you're going to need to do, who's going to manage that in your business, and who's going to be accountable for that in your business.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said earlier as well, I feel like there's almost like a double whammy, if you will, of not only just the mandatory reporting, but I guess really the current challenges facing IT teams right now, not just the ongoing energy crisis right now, but increasing RAM prices, infrastructure availability, et cetera, as well. So I think you're right in saying that preparation and execution is going to be really key right now. Just confirming, we haven't received any questions as yet, and that's all fine. If you are watching and you do have some follow-up questions once we send through the recording of this webinar, please feel free to reach out to our team. We're more than happy to liaise with Beau directly and pass on any questions that you may have about everything that has been covered today. But for now, though, Beau, thank you once again for your time. It's great just to check in with you, just really continue this important conversation going into next year.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thanks everyone for your time. Always love engaging with customers on this kind of topic. As you said, Ben, if anyone wants to have a one-on-one with me, excuse me, more than happy to do so. Always available. I'm in Adelaide once a month for those in Adelaide, and I travel around the country quite extensively. Happy to get involved. Happy to talk about your particular requirements, because every organisation is different. And also within Schneider Electric, I'm only one of a couple thousand people in Australia. We have advisory services, we have specialists in building management and digital energy and the like. So if you want to talk around energy efficiency and sustainability across anything to do with your organization, please feel free to reach out and I will put you in touch with the right people.
Fantastic. Well, that's a pretty good way to close it off there, Beau. Thank you so much for that. And also everyone watching as well, please stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have some announcements very soon about a series of webinars we're planning to run in conjunction with Microsoft as well. So I do look forward to sharing those details with you in due course. But until that time, Beau, thank you once again. Thank you everyone for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.